Hello, my intermediate and advanced drawing folks. This is Professor Prince again, coming to you live from Austria. And this is another one of the backup video series, just in case your Wi-Fi had problems, just in case mine, or something happened that you didn't make it to class. You have all of the information that you need. So once again, I'm in Austria, the windows are open, and occasionally there might be some background noise. So let's just ignore that. In this video, we're going to discuss the first assignment, which I've already kind of mentioned a couple of times, but let's go ahead and pull that up and let me adjust screen share here. All right. Okay, so I just easily roughly call this assignment remix. Okay, and we will get started on this next week. So you've got to be ready the beginning of class on Tuesday to get going on this assignment after a demonstration that to help you. Okay, so you're going to be making 4 drawings and you have until September 22nd to complete all 4 drawings, okay? So this is a good chance in this assignment and I really like it and I bring it back every couple of years for you to consider and investigate your personal influences. And influences are other artists and designers, visual culture producers, okay? Influences, artists, designers, visual culture producers, okay? Sources are cultural elements not related to art and design. They could be nature, okay? Dreams, so on and so forth. And then for both of those, what is the style, the distinct visual quality that the image or element has, okay? So as you saw in the artist lecture, this is a lot about borrowing, okay? Or I really like to say stealing, so taking it and making it your own. So this assignment has 4 drawings in 3 parts. So let's just go over the first part, okay? So for the first part, and this is what we'll get started on the 30th, you will have to do 2 master copies, okay? What's a master copy? A master copy is an exercise, it's a drawing to learn the master's method via the act of copying. There's a very long art historical precedent for doing this, okay? So the goal is replication and learning, okay? So the caveat on these 2 drawings is one must be pre-1900, you can go back as far as you want, and one must be post-1900. So one that's older, one that's more contemporary, okay? So these 2 drawings again are just copies of the old master or masterworks, I should say, one's old, one's new, that you select. So the choice for these artists is up to you. I am asking you on Canvas to select 2 different artists for both, so that way you have a little bit of leeway. And you need to select something that's engaging enough and that you're interested in, that you can make this work. Do look for value and technique, okay? So then what's part 2? Okay, so part 1, 2 drawings where you're replicating masterworks. Part 2 is synthesis, okay? And in synthesis, which I don't want to be able to say right now, is when you take these 2 drawings and you visually intertwine them together. So you take the compositions and the styles and the images and you mesh them together to create a new drawing, okay? But you have the challenge here is the compositional challenge. How do you take the styles and compositions of these 2 drawings and merge them into a new piece? Okay, so this is A plus B, C. Okay, part 3, and I should say too, I'm going to show you examples of this in just a moment. So hopefully then everything will click. And this sheet that I'm going off of right now is available on Canvas, as will be this video for you to come back to. So part 3 then is what I call morph, okay? If in part 2 you took those 2 old masters and you intertwined them together, now you're going to take that interwoven new drawing and morph it by adding in new compositional elements from your influences or sources, okay? So you can think about what's makes most sense to incorporate in terms of subject, form, content, and context. Okay, so what influences are available to you? What things outside of the visual arts inspire you that you could incorporate into this drawing? Okay, so let's go over that one more time. Make sure we're all on the same page. So part one, 2 drawings that are master copies. One pre-1900, one post. Okay, so the idea there is learning via replication, building off an art historical precedent. But then, and this is where the title comes in, then we mix it up and we start to have fun. We're going to rock it around a little bit. Part 2 is synthesis. So taking A and B and intertwining them together to create a new drawing C. Part 3 is morph. You take what you've done for synthesis and you start to add other influences and sources into it. Interested in ecology, adding that in. Interested in photography of that is coming from outer space with the new camera, add that in, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's look at some examples then. Okay, so this is a student, let me zoom out, from a few semesters back. Her name is Rachel Hansel. And Rachel did a great job with this assignment. So what we're seeing here is her post-1900 master copy. So she worked with an image from the artist Keith Haring. Okay, and this is indeed a drawing. So she used markers and Sharpies to execute this piece after Keith Haring. Her pre-1900 is a drawing of a rooster by Leonardo da Vinci. Now remember in the assignment, I want you to pick artists that you're interested in, but time-wise and otherwise, there has to be some disparate qualities to them, right? And I think you can see that happening here with Rachel's. How much more different can you get than a drawing by Leonardo da Vinci versus the graffiti-inspired pieces of Keith Haring? Okay, so these are Rachel's 2 drawings for part 1. Okay, now let's look at Rachel's drawings for part 2 and 3. Okay, so this is Rachel's synthesis drawing. So she stayed true to the main compositional format of Leonardo's rooster, but then she started to add Haring's imagery into it and his use of bold, bright colors. So let me go back and let's look again. So here's Keith Haring. Notice all of these kind of hieroglyphic marks that Haring has around forms and the use of block colors for each figures. So Rachel intertwined those together by filling the background with Haring's characters, incorporating those bold colors onto the rooster, but also having the graphite. So it was a kind of a trick to balance everything out, but I think she handled it well. And that's synthesis. Leonardo da Vinci, Keith Haring, intertwined together. Then we have her morph. So remember, morph is taking what you started with in synthesis, but starting to add your own other cultural influences and ideas into it. So she plays around more with Keith Haring's work, and she takes Da Vinci's rooster and makes it into one of Keith Haring's characters. Okay, you can see that right away here. But then Rachel is really one of her sources, something that she worked with throughout the semester was water. So she incorporates within the graphite kind of drawing style that she worked with for the Da Vinci master copy, this flowing water-like background that kind of energizes and works opposite of the bold colors for the more Haring-inspired pieces, each of which she kind of played with here and made it into her own. So I feel like Rachel did a great job with this assignment. Do you guys agree? But let's look at one more. Okay, so this is Carla Jamison's, and this is from a few semesters back, and I apologize, I forgot to put in my notes with Carla's images who her older master copy who the artist was. So I apologize that that is not on here, but this is indeed her pre-1900. And then her post-1900, maybe easier to figure out, is Pablo Picasso. So she used charcoal for the upper image and graphite for the bottom image. Okay, so those, again, I'll go back. Those are her, the part 1, 2 master copies. Okay, then let's look at her synthesis and more. So first of all, and I think Carla would say this too if Carla was here, her synthesis was a good beginning, but it could have been a little stronger. Okay, she needed, in the synthesis, we see she took the figural component in the older master copy and it executed it in a cubist style. It just needs more contrast, either stronger line work, more values. And I feel like if Carla was here right now, she would agree. But look, so that's what synthesis, right? Old master intertwined together. And it's a good beginning. It just needs to be a little richer and stronger for sure. But look what she did with morph. So again, morph builds off of, talking with my hands here, morph builds off of synthesis. So if synthesis intertwines, then you take synthesis and you add your sources and your other influences into it. So we still see the same kind of gesture of the figure, correct? But Carla, who is actually an art education major and is now teaching in Miami-Dade County, loves those little mannequins that you oftentimes pose for drawings. So she made the figure into a mannequin, which in some ways references back to Cubism, right? Because it's not multiple views that we see in Cubist, but it's very geometric. She also really loves stained glass. So the background, kind of this that we saw here with the half tree, becomes completely transformed into this stained glass looking background. And then of course, there's the addition of a color in a very kind of cohesive color scheme. So I feel like Carla could have made her synthesis drawing a little bit stronger, but her morph drawing came out to be really successful. Okay, so just to reiterate, and we've got some time, but there's individual due dates for each of these. Okay, so the first part, part 1, your master copies. So one pre-1900, one post-1900, artist of your choosing. Okay, subject matter, it's all up to you. Okay, so pick something that inspires you. Just make sure they're disparate, that there's some distinction between them in terms of style and subject matter. Okay, we'll start on that in class on Tuesday, August 30th. So I want you to bring those 4 images that you selected as an actual printout. Okay, that will make life much easier. You'll see once we get started. Okay, part 1, master copies, 2 drawings. Part 2, 1 drawing, synthesis. So take elements from both compositions, interweave them together to make a new piece, make a synthesis. Then part 3, 1 drawing, take what you did for synthesis and add in other influences, like you saw where Rachel added her love for the ocean and waves into her drawing. Carla added in her interest in mannequins and stained glass into her figures. Okay, so again, this video will be available for you online to review, and the handout and other items are also available on Canvas under the module remix for you to go back to at any time. All right, ask me any questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing what artists you pick for part 1.